welcome to Just Start, Get Visible, your go-to resource on the journey to becoming more visible in a way that feels right for you. Hey there, and welcome back to yet another episode of Just Start, Get Visible. It's Jacqueline here, and I am excited about today's conversation. And here's why. It is because, like so many of you, we feel rushed. I feel rushed. I'll go first and say, I feel rushed lately. I feel like I am often rushed into the next thing, into the next decision, away from maybe a beautiful win or a beautiful engagement I may have had with someone. And guess what? It's quickly time to rush on to something else. And the reason why this month, as a part of our work at Just Start Get Visible, is so special to me is because we get the opportunity to fight back when being rushed on to something else. And let me tell you why that is. In our previous episode, which was number 245, okay, we're just a few episodes away from 250, we had a beautiful conversation with Dallas Gordon. If you want to listen to or watch that episode, just head over to jacquelinembaker.com/245 and you'll be able to listen to and also watch that episode right there from the landing page. The reason why I like that episode is because, number one, it was a really good episode, all focused on how Dallas Gordon, who I interviewed in the last conversation, has lived many lives. And unapologetically, she's done so many things, from dabbling in the baker space to having a stationery business to being a coach for entrepreneurs and people growing in their professional journey. And I love that episode so much because it was really good, but also because there was so much learning and richness from that conversation that the rest of our episodes in February are drawn from the learnings from that episode. And the reason why I love that so much is because it allows us to let the content and let the learning and let that beautiful experience that I had with Dallas live longer. I feel so rushed on to the next thing so quickly. So this is my small but mighty way of fighting back a bit and saying, you know what? No, that was a good conversation. And we're not quite done with that content yet. And so instead of us just recording more and more and more stuff and starting new conversations from scratch, which I can do and I do well and I love to do it, why don't we let the essence of that conversation live a little bit longer? Which is why for the rest of our episodes in February, we'll be taking lessons and things and experiences that I had the opportunity to engage around with Dallas in our face-to-face conversation and pulling those concepts out a bit more to let the content live longer and to let you experiment with some more things as you come here to find ways to get more visible in a way that feels right for you. So today, although it is episode number 246, all focused on the art of reinvention, a lot of the conversation that we had with Dallas in episode 245 was about reinvention and how she's lived many lives and reinvented herself several times. So we're going to go a little bit deeper. And we're going to go deeper in bringing out 3 concepts that you can utilize to help you really hone in on your very own process, experience, your art process, if you will, of reinventing yourself. If you're thinking to yourself, you know what, it's about that time. Or maybe you're wondering, is it that time for me? So let's talk all about episode number 246, focused on the art of reinvention. The very first thing I want you to keep in mind as you are perhaps toying with, considering, exploring a possibility of reinventing yourself is how it will be necessary and you have the opportunity to let go of the old identity. Now, stick with me for a second because you might be thinking, Jacqueline, there are pieces of my old identity that no longer serve me or that I'm not interested in. And okay, that's fine. But perhaps you're thinking, you know what? No, I got to let go of that old identity completely in order to embrace this new identity. Either way, whether you have to completely let go or let go some elements of it, I want you to keep just a few things in mind. Okay. First of all, it is not abnormal to outgrow previous versions of yourself. Why is that? It's because in many ways, as we learn more, experience more, shed things, shed people, move on to other careers, acquire new knowledge, expire some knowledge in our life that maybe we're like, that doesn't serve me anymore. guess what? With doing all this mixing and matching and swapping in and swapping out, you know what you're creating? You're creating a newer version of yourself. And I don't know about you, but I have certainly had my experience with being challenged with that, with feeling like, oh my gosh, like I have all this new stuff, this new set of information, this new wisdom. Am I changing? Of course you're changing. Like you're not the same person that you were at 7 or 17 or 27. And so there are some pieces of you that perhaps you have outgrown and you're hoarding it. You're hanging on to things and practices and stories. We talked about the stories that we tell ourselves in episode 245. So you might want to rewind back and listen to that if you're like, I keep telling myself this false story and I don't really, it's not serving me anymore. Maybe it's time for you to tell yourself a new story. But we do often outgrow previous versions of ourselves because it's a previous version. It was how you used to operate. So know that that could happen. And perhaps it needs to happen. And you're not letting it happen for whatever reason. You're like, oh no, I'm fighting back, trying to be who I was at 7. But is that really realistic? Are you 7 anymore? Probably not. So we do outgrow versions of ourselves. You're not crazy. You're not abnormal. Perhaps you're fighting back on something that you really need to do anyway. The second thing I want you to keep in mind is that it might be time for you to start to look out for some signs of a need to pivot, right? So as we're thinking about letting go of your old identity, I first want you to know that sometimes we do very much outgrow previous versions of ourselves. And it also might be time for us to start to look at the tea leaves and look around and pay attention to see, you know what? Is it time for me to pivot? Is it time for me to adjust? And there are usually a certain number of clues that happen when it's time for us to pivot or adjust, all in service of reinventing ourselves and letting go of our the old identity, the old us, the old version of us. One thing that might be happening is perhaps you are uninspired over and over and over again. Perhaps you're like, you know what? I've did this, whatever this is. I've experienced this, whatever this is. I'm trying. I'm uninspired. I'm not inspired. I'm not excited. This isn't interesting to me anymore. And perhaps you're clinging on to something when in fact it's time to pivot and move in another direction. Maybe even start something new. So are you uninspired? Secondly, is are you in financial distress? I'm always super careful in talking about the finance pieces, not because I don't think it's important, but because I know that sometimes talking about finances, particularly when you're in the just start space, feels heavy and it feels like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to give myself permission to start the things that I want to do. However, I got to think money, 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 and resources, resources. And yeah, quite frankly, you do. However, if you're thinking, is it time for me to pivot, adjust, maybe even reinvent? Are you in financial distress so much that you know that it is time? And if I don't think differently, embrace a new identity, if I don't start to shed that outdated version of myself, I'm only going to keep going in a negative direction or in a direction that I really don't want to go in. So I'm thinking about, is it time to pivot? Are you in financial distress or are you headed towards it? And third, something that I don't think that we check in with ourselves enough about, because sometimes we're just trying to make the dollar amount work or we're trying to make sense of something overall, but we're not considering our personal space in this. Meaning, are we personally aligned with this direction that we're headed in? Right? Does this still feel like something that I actually want to do? Am I in the direction that I want to go in? I get that there are things that we often have to do because we need to eat. We choose to have shelter for ourselves, for our family, for our loved ones, for our spouse. And we have the opportunity to consider, am I personally aligned with whatever this direction is that I'm headed in? I want you to consider those three things as it relates to, is it time? Is it time for me to pivot? Am I uninspired? Am I in or heading towards financial distress? And am I even personally aligned with this anymore? And the last thing I want you to consider, and I talked about this just a second or so ago, is the stories. The stories that we may or may not be telling ourselves that keep us from embracing labels or for some reason keep us from letting go of labels overall. Even as I think back in the episode that I recorded last, episode number 245 with Dallas Gordon, her journey of dabbling in the baker space to dabbling and being successful in the stationery space, the subscription box space, and then the coaching space is all hugely in part by giving herself permission to shed these other labels. She wasn't a baker and a coach, right? There were some labels that she chose to shed in the spirit of ensuring that she had the space, right, to start other things, the space to put more intellectual capital, if you will, and more knowledge in her mind. And so, are there titles and identities that you're holding on to, but because you're holding on to them, they are allowing you, or they're forcing you to stay where you're at, which is maybe a place that you really don't want to be. So first thing I want you to keep in mind with all the sub supporting content that we just explored a second ago is it time for you to let go of the old identity? And is there an opportunity for you to do that by, number one, letting yourself outgrow that previous version of you, recognizing through maybe being uninspired, maybe through financial distress, maybe through understanding personal alignment, that it's time for you to possibly pivot. And also, are you giving yourself permission to shed those previous labels? Like, are they even serving you anymore? And this is the perfect time for me to stop and say, I understand that sometimes shedding those previous labels is really hard because those previous labels perhaps allowed you to get access to certain things or certain people, right? Or certain situations, certain opportunities. And that's great, right? And maybe that was a moment in time that served you well. But perhaps by shedding those labels, you are, first of all, honoring the fact that that was a previous version of yourself that no longer serves you, but it frees up space on your calendar, in your mind, right, in your spirit, in order to learn new things, acquire new friends, new networks, new relationships, to maybe reinvent yourself overall. Okay, so number one, let's just let go of the old identity, or at least start to go down the path of exploring what does letting go of my old identity even look like. Okay. The second thing I want us to dive into is our opportunity to transfer skills, okay, across seasons. So, for those of you who literally were about to kick and scream from number one, thinking, do I really have to let go of my entire identity, the old one? I'm not saying that you have to, but there might be pieces of it that just aren't serving you well anymore. All right. I'll give you a prime example. The very first company that I ever started was a wedding and event production business, which served me very well. A lot of people that know me personally know that in the spaces that I currently operate in, there are lots of skills that I utilize from being a wedding and event producer in the current spaces that I operate in now. However, I had to shed the title of event planner and event producer so that I can make space for the new titles that I have, right? Which are host, helping people host in ways that feel right for them, executing etiquette and leadership training. But in executing that etiquette and leadership training, guess what often needs to happen? Some type of gathering needs to happen. Some type of event needs to happen, but that event is all rooted in executing this new thing that I've been doing over the past couple decades now. But you better believe that me previously being a wedding and event producer paved the way for me to be able to do this new stuff successfully. However, I am not a wedding and event producer. I am not an event planner at all. So I had to shed those titles, just like Dallas previously had to shed those titles of baker, right? And stationary entrepreneur, so that she can make space for the next things that are the things that are going on in her life overall. So, in talking about shedding titles, know that I know some people are thinking, oh my gosh, like I have to let go of the old identity. Yeah. And many times you do have to do that, or it serves you well to do that. However, there are skills that you may have acquired that can transfer across the new seasons of our lives, right? I know that one of the reasons why I have the capacity to deal with difficult people is because of my background in wedding planning. All right. I say all the time that I remember my grounding moments in learning how to deal with difficult people was often having to deal with the mother of the bride. All right. I've had a lot of interesting, I wouldn't say run-ins because that feels dramatic, right? And a little saucy. But I wouldn't say run-ins with mother of the brides, but I was able to pick up pretty quickly when the mother of the bride perhaps was going to be a little bit contentious in a wedding planning scenario. And so I learned quickly how to acquire a positive relationship with that mother of the bride because they were going to be in it sometimes way more than the bride or the groom was. They took on ownership of a lot of weddings in ways that they just did. Like whether I agree with it or not, that's what they wanted to do. Perhaps they were paying, right? Perhaps they weren't paying, whatever. But I saw a lot of times that the mother of the bride, sometimes the mother of the groom, often really came in hot and heavy. And it taught me early how to deal with difficult people. It was leveraging, right, that unconventional approach in my entrepreneur space early in my life that really built this foundation of how I establish relationships to this day, or being able to look out for maybe some of the landmines and difficult conversations or difficult people that maybe I don't necessarily want to deal with, but I choose to because I want to do this greater work. I want to ultimately make sure that the work that I'm doing aligns with my life thesis, which we'll talk about in our third bullet of today. So I want you to think about your opportunities to build skills that transfer across seasons, or to leverage your skills, right, that transfers across the different seasons of your life. Know that, just as I said a second ago about the wedding planning scenario, there are hidden lessons that you can call upon from your past careers and even your past passions, right? There are these hidden lessons. And within these hidden lessons are likely skills that you sharpen, skills that you refine, maybe skills that you got really good at as a part of this past identity that you can siphon from, if you will. I am very quick to say that I am not an event planner, but I'm also very quick to say that there are some key event planning pieces, lessons, skills, expertise that I have acquired from my previous identity that you better believe I still use. And so, what are the hidden lessons from your past careers and your passions that you can call upon to siphon out, right? To really segment and prop up those skills that you can transfer across seasons. Okay. I also want you to remember that you have an opportunity to leverage your unconventional backgrounds, right, in order to make sure that the skills that can serve you well as you are maybe shedding an identity, reinventing yourself, that you can utilize those how you see fit into the best of your ability. And third is, I want you to remember how your experience stacks into powerful expertise, right? Sometimes we think that we're just doing this little thing here, this little thing there, this little thing here and there. And it's actually so interesting because just the other day, actually a couple weeks ago, Madame Noir magazine reached out to me to ask for my opinion on this recent situation where a mother planned a birthday party for her 1 year old and no one showed up for this birthday party, although a ton of people RSVP'd. So they reached out and said, "Hey, Jacqueline, we would like your professional expertise, your etiquette expertise on this subject. Like, what do you think? What's your perspective? What should have happened? What insight do you have?" And I remember at first being a little bit taken aback by the E word, expertise. And after I quickly retold myself some stories, because I still have to go down that journey, just like many of you do as well, I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to give my professional expertise on this. Why? Because I'm an expert in this space. I've been doing this etiquette work for almost 2 decades. And it's not a matter of ego. It's not a matter of gloating. It's just a matter of facts. There are some things that you have been doing for years, for decades for some of us. And guess what happens over time? Your experience stacks into powerful expertise. They stack into skills that you're able to transfer across seasons if you're allowing that to happen. And so I would encourage you not to have these past identities, these past things that you have perhaps gotten really good at, and then you say, you know what, I want to switch over to something else and forget it. I'm throwing it all away. No, 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 no. Are you able to siphon out the skills that you need? And more important, are you able to leverage it into powerful words and credibility that people will utilize in order to see you as someone they want to work with, they want to hire, they want to leverage for whatever? So, is your experience being stacked into powerful expertise? So, as you're thinking about building skills that transfer across seasons, I want you to consider three things. What are the hidden lessons from your past careers and your passions that you can utilize to extract skills from that can serve you now? How are you leveraging unconventional backgrounds in order to recognize or realize the skills that you truly have that you can reorient to reinvent yourself? And lastly, how is your experience stacking into expertise? Is it just stacking and you're just like, it's just stacking, it doesn't mean anything? Or do you realize that after all these years and experiences, things that have gone good, things that haven't gone so great, that I'm actually an expert in this space? I'm at least a thought leader in this space. Like, give yourself some credibility. Okay. Now, the third thing I want you to keep in mind as it relates to the art of reinvention, right, is that you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to reinvent yourself without losing yourself. Okay. Because I know that after I gave that very first tip up there of letting go of the old identity, some people were thinking, oh my gosh, like, but what will I be known as? All right. I'm particularly excited about an episode that we're going to release later on this year. And I'll give you a little behind the scenes hint. I'm going to interview someone in my household. All right. Well, those of you who know me personally are like, I already know who it is. And I get a chance to interview this person from a different perspective and lens from how I interviewed them several years ago because their life has substantially changed career wise. And the reason why I'm so just excited about this episode is because of the way in which this person's transition happened was was a way in which lots of people react to folks who transition from one career to the next or from a career to maybe in their retirement season. Like, we have a lot of questions and poke a lot of holes when people are making these big transitions in their life. But there is an opportunity for each of us to reinvent ourselves without feeling like we're losing ourselves. But there are some things that we should keep in mind as we're going on this journey. Because if not, then you start to make these shifts and you question out, who am I now? And oh my gosh, like, am I still valuable? What do people think about me? Just all these things that sometimes pop into our mind, all in this journey, what could be this great thing of reinventing ourselves. But perhaps we're feeling like, but who am I now? And what's my value out here? So, firstly, look out for that episode that's going to come out later this year. It's going to be a video one with me and a guest, and it's going to be really good. But secondly, let's talk about some ways for you to ensure that you are reinventing yourself without losing yourself. Okay. The first thing that I offer up, and this is coming from someone who's had a couple of reinventions, you can call them pivots if you want, but I'll say overall, somebody who's given themselves permission to try new things and make sure that I'm taking the skills that I learned previously with me along on the journey. I want you to stay grounded. Stay grounded through your constant evolution in life. I often make note of the fact that the earth, from an artifact standpoint, in terms of how much physical proof that we have that the earth has been here, the earth has been around here for a long time, like billions of years. And we show up here as humans that have been here, on average 50, 60, 70, if you're lucky, 80, 90, 100 years. And we think that, okay, things are going to stay exactly the same, even us. Like, we won't go through an evolution. And it's not true. Like, we will evolve. Our bodies will evolve. Our interests will evolve. Our minds will evolve. But we're also humans who have feelings, who are deeply connected to other people and other things. And there's this desire for us to stay grounded, which is often why we get in trouble, is because we start doing stuff and we're not grounded in something. So, how are you staying grounded through constant evolution? And your grounding can look like a lot of different things. There are three litmus tests, if you will, that I'll give you if you don't have your own, to help you check in, right? Okay, I'm reinventing myself. However, am I still keeping the essence of this to make sure that I'm not turning into somebody that I don't want to be? So what about your values? I'm usually pretty honest with sharing with the world, like, some of my top values. FLMRS, freedom, love, making a difference, reciprocity, security, are some of my core values. I can check in on any week and say, Jacqueline, what are you doing in these spaces? And if I have a substantial amount of activity in these spaces, I feel good, because those are the things that make me feel good, make me feel valued, make me feel like I'm doing what it is that I came here to do on earth. And so values, are you checking in with them? What's your North Star? Like, what are you marching towards? What is your existence ultimately laddering up to? When you do this thing in alignment with your North Star, you feel good. So, what is your North Star? For me, I call that same thing my life thesis statement. I've shared my life thesis statement many times here on the podcast, and I'll probably share it a million times over because I feel strongly about it. And it's this: at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, when they're boxing me up, sprinkling some ashes around, I want my work to ladder up to the fact that I help people start the things that they truly want to do, get visible in a way that feels right for them, right? And truly believe that they're a leader and believe that they can evolve to their next level of leadership. And all the things that I do, they're especially from a professional standpoint, they're laddered up in those spaces and I feel good about it. And so for me, I stay grounded through all my evolutions by saying, yep, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I might write this book and this podcast or whatever. But at the end of the day, does it support my overall life thesis statement? And if I can say yes, I can feel good about it. All right. So stay grounded. Find your way. What is your way to stay grounded through constant evolution? Second is keeping authenticity at the center of your pivots and your changes. And the authenticity can really boil down to one question. Blah 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 blah. And why am I doing this? And am I doing it in a way that feels good for me? And why am I doing this? And am I doing it in a way that feels good for me? Right? So keeping authenticity at the center of every pivot so that you don't feel like I am truly becoming somebody that I did not choose to be or I didn't want to be. And lastly, I want you to reflect on the previous episode. So the episode prior to this one was episode number 245. And Dallas talked a lot about um, embracing change with confidence. Right? I really love one of the statements that she made, which is, I may hear something, read something, connect with somebody, and then all of a sudden am I'm a new person. It's because she embraces this notion that she's constantly changing, constantly getting new information, and the new information is changing her perspective, right? For her, she is perfectly okay with the idea and the fact for her that she has lived many lives and she can evolve, that she can be a new person. So for you, as you're thinking about your very own art of reinvention, as you're thinking about what's next for you, as you're thinking about a potential pivot, what new information can you allow into your life so that you can change with confidence and not feel like, oh, I'm changing and I don't really know. Like, you're changing whether you want to or not. Like, literally, we have been evolving since the moment that we all were introduced to this world. The question is, can we change with confidence with information that we're allowing to be inserted into our life with new wisdom, with new skills, with new things that's supporting our very next steps? Let's wrap this on up. Of course, you've been here with episode number 246, and it's all about the art of reinvention. And I really wanted to make sure that you had three quick but tangible ways to check in with yourself and say, you know what, perhaps it is time for me to go on this reinvention journey. But have I considered, number one, the opportunity for me to let go of the old identity? Have I considered the opportunity for me to build skills that transfer across my seasons, the many different seasons that are occurring in my life? And am I reinventing myself without losing myself by being grounded in something, North Star, value, life thesis, whatever it is that you choose to do? I'm excited because the rest of our episodes for the month of February are all drawn from the dynamic conversation that I had with Dallas earlier in the month. So look out for our very next episode, which is episode number 247, by the way, which is all about visibility with integrity. Because yes, I want you to get visible in a way that feels right for you, but I also want you to get visible in a way that helps you sleep at night and not make you question, should I have done that? That's not even who I am. That's not even, I don't know who I am after seeing what I just did, or watching myself in that interaction. So I want you to pay attention because in episode 247, we're talking all about visibility with integrity. Listen, wherever you're at in the world, I hope that you're safe. I hope that you're healthy and I hope that you're well. And I certainly hope that you're giving yourself permission to start the things that you want to do. You take care of yourself. Share this episode with one other person that might be considering reinventing themselves, or you know secretly it's time for them to do it. You take care of yourself, and I will see you again soon. Ciao.